Okay, so guys, after passing through the video, I realized to say that I made a mistake on question B3. I made a mistake on question B3, which is this one right here. So let's see how it was supposed to be solved. Okay, so the question reads to say figure B3.1 below is a diagram showing a load being moved using a wheelbarrow. So this was the road which was being moved by a wheelbarrow. Then they are saying the total mass of the wheelbarrow and the load is 80 kg. Take gravity as 10 Newton per kg. So therefore, question A, they are saying calculate the number 1 weight of the wheelbarrow and the rod. So we already know the mass of the wheelbarrow and the rod to be 80 kg. Then how do we calculate weight? So you should know that weight is calculated as force. So you should know that weight is calculated as same as force. So since we know that force is equal to mass times gravity, or in other ways mass times acceleration due to gravity. So since weight is calculated the same as force, that simply means that you're going to say weight is equal to mg, which is mass times gravity, or mass times acceleration due to gravity. So therefore, when we use that formula, we write it right here. We say, since now we know that weight must give us mass times acceleration due to gravity. So what is the mass? So the mass we have, it is 80 kg, which is the mass of the wheelbarrow and the rod, and we are also calculating the weight of the wheelbarrow and the rod. So the mass we have, which is 80, so we're going to say weight is equal to the mass, which is 80, then times acceleration due to gravity, it is 10 Newton per kg. So we have 10 here. So hence 80 times 10, you get 800. So we have 800. So since weight is calculated as same as force, that simply means that also weight is measured in Newton. Okay, so meaning that 800 Newton was our answer. We write 800 Newton right here. Then number 2, they are saying calculate force F required to lift the wheelbarrow. So force F required to lift the wheelbarrow from the diagram here. So you can see that force F right here, that is what you are looking for. And a wheelbarrow, it is an example of moment, and a wheelbarrow, it is an example of moment. And hence we have the distance from here. So this can be our pivot, because when somebody lifts this handle here, that simply means that the wheelbarrow will turn anti-clockwise. So that simply means that where it will turn from, it is right here. So this is our pivot. So the distance from the pivot to where W is, which is weight. So weight, we had 800. We calculated weight to be 800. So weight, it is 800 Newton. So we calculated weight to be 800. So the distance from the pivot to the weight, it is 800. And now the distance from the pivot, to the force F, it is 1.5 plus 0.5, giving us what? 2 meters. So that is the total distance, 2 meters. So that simply means that since this question, it is coming from moment, meaning that we should say moment 1 should give us moment 2. Okay, moment 1 must give us moment 2. So what is moment 1? So moment 1, it will be the weight here. So this is moment 1. This is moment 1, and moment 2, it is the force which we are looking at. This is moment 2. So therefore, how do we find the moment? Moment, generally we simply say moment is equal to force times distance moved in the same direction. Force times distance, force times distance which is perpendicular to the distance. Okay, so the force must be perpendicular to the distance, that is moment. So that simply means that for us to find moment 1, we are going to say force 1, we're going to say force 1 times distance 1, and this must give us moment 2, which will be force 2 times distance 2. So this is the formula that we're using. What is force 1? Force 1, it is coming from moment 1, which is our weight right here, 800 Newton. So we say 800 times distance 1. So the distance from the pivot to where 800 Newton is, which is 0.5 there. So we say 0.5. Then this will give us force 2. So force 2 we don't know. This is where moment 2 is, which is F. So force 2 we have F times distance 2. The distance from moment 2 or force F to the pivot, which is 2 meters, adding 0.5 and adding 1.5 and 0.5 giving us 2. So the distance 2, it is 2. So therefore 0.5 times 800, you get 400. So we have 400 right here is equal to, then F times 2, you get 2F. So to find F, you divide over 2, even here you divide over 2. Cancel 2 and 2, you remain with F is equal to 400 divided by 2, you get what? 200. So this is what you get. So that simply means that the answer right here was supposed to be 200 Newton. That was supposed to be the answer, 200 Newton. Then question B, they are saying state whether force F would increase or reduce when the handles of the wheelbarrow are made longer. So we should state whether force F would increase or reduce if the handles of the wheelbarrow are made longer. Okay, so let's look at the handles there. So let's try to erase some something here. Okay, so let's try to erase something from here first of all. Okay. Yeah, so let's try to erase something. So the question said that we should state whether the handle, whether the force F would increase or reduce when the handles are made longer. Now here, with a distance of 2 meters, force F, it is actually 200. Force F is actually 200. Okay. Now what if the handles are made longer? So when the handles they are made longer, meaning that it becomes somewhere here, then meaning that the distance will also increase automatically. The distance will also increase. So let's say this distance, it is actually 1 meter. This distance, it is 1 meter. I'm just assuming, let's say this distance, it is 1 meter, because they've said when the handles are made longer, will the force F reduce or increase? So meaning that we have now the force which is right here. So now what will be this force? Once we found this force, therefore we will not to say it has reduced or it hasn't reduced. So we already know to say that from the pivot to where this F is, the force, it is 800. So that will be 800 multiplied by 0.5. We're just finding moment again. So that will be 0.5 multiplied by 800. multiplied by 800, and this will give us, in this case now the distance, it will be 3, so that will be 0.5 plus 1.5 plus this 1 meter, giving us 3 meters, times the force, which is F. So the force, which is F right here. So 0.5 times 800, this is supposed to be 800. 0.5 times 800, we are going to get what? 400. Then this will give us 3F. You divide over 3, you also divide over 3. So the F now, it will be, when you divide 400 by 3, you are getting 133. So we are getting 133 point something there, 0.33. So therefore force here, it will be 1.33. So you can see that after making the handles longer, therefore the force reduced from 200 to 133. So this simply means that when we make the forces, when we make the handles shorter, the force will increase. So we can now answer the question. So that simply means that when the handles are made longer, the force will reduce. So that is the answer here. The force will reduce. Thank you for watching.